I've been rotting my brain playing Pokemon Violet since launch day, and I can honestly say that in my experience this is one of the most shocking Pokemon games of all time. It's shocking in the way it has adapted and revolutionised the main series formula and created a new high for Pokemon gameplay. It's shocking in how it runs like treacle on a cold day, and it's shocking in the sheer obsession with sandwiches, and therefore I have decided that I'm going to talk about Pokemon Violet in a sandwich structure. I'm going to have the base layer of some of the most positive experiences I've had playing this fantastically structured Pokemon game, and then I'm going to fill this sandwich with complaints and sheer second-hand embarrassment at how poor this runs for a AAA bloody franchise. And then I'm going to top it off with a nice layer of positive feelings about how this has adapted the Pokemon formula so well and has set a standard for actual gameplay. And of course I'm not going to garnish it with story spoilers or mention anything in Area Zero, but I will mention some brand new Pokemon. Sounds good? Well, let's start on this sandwich. So I've played every Pokemon game since the series launch, and I have played Day 1 since Generation 3. I played Day 2 for Generation 2, it's still a sore point, don't worry about it. And one of the things I love so much about this series is how it deals well with discovery. To me, discovering new facts and new things is a wonderful experience, and I get this from Pokemon very well. I honestly don't think I've had this strong a sense of wonder and enjoyment about discovering the world since Generation 2. Once you've done the very slow start to the game and picked your starter, gotten your ride Pokemon, it pretty much felt like it opened up. Rather than go towards my intended goal, I saw a little stream to the right and saw all these wild Pokemon playing around everywhere, and I thought, I wonder what's down there. 20 minutes later I was standing in some little ruins, I'd been rushed by a bloody flamingo of all things, and I'm giddy with delight because I have no idea where the hell I am. When they said open world, I did have my doubts, but no, this is genuinely an open world. The only limit is how well you can move your ride Pokemon at the time, which you're going to upgrade later. And once you get into the treasure hunt proper, you can just go wherever you want and do whatever you want, and Game Freak have pretty much nailed the art of distracting you when you're trying to get to a goal. The shiny beams of light, Pokemon darting around area, and decently dispersed trainers provide a near constant stream of action to find. It really feels like a living, breathing Pokemon world for the first time, and every time I play, I just end up wandering around some random region of Paldea the same way I lost 7 hours of my life running around the coast of Hyrule in Breath of the Wild. As I said, discovery is a wonderful experience for me, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet seem to have nailed this very much so. It's very close to what I've had in my mind for an open world Pokemon game for a while, and I think they've nailed a lot of the gameplay elements. The battles are quite fast, there's plenty to do and see, and they've nailed the wild Pokemon in my opinion as far as their levels go. There's clearly an intended route or two to take around Paldea, which is soft level gated by wild Pokemon being at certain levels, but damn if it wasn't cool exploring so much that I ended up at a giant lake with level 50 Pokemon while my highest was barely level 36. And the best part of this whole game is finding new Pokemon you've never seen before. Taking on the third Titan, I was blown away by what Orthworm looked like. I got attacked by a Vuzela out of nowhere, which almost wiped my entire team out because it was so high level in comparison to me, and I spent nearly 2 hours hunting Frigibacks, and then when it evolved, I've had such a blast playing this game. It's hit so many of the right notes for me, and it really gives me confidence that Game Freak can deliver a really well-made Pokemon experience filled with features and better open worlds in the future. And that's definitely in the future, you know, because the thing is, as much as I can compliment the gameplay aspects, it's time to get to the filling of this sandwich, and that is the fact that this is not a well-made Pokemon game. It's shockingly bad as far as performance and frankly even graphics go, which I feel is disappointing as hell for a AAA franchise. Now, I've heard of and seen some really bad stuff in other people's videos and on Twitter. The googly eyes are very funny of course, but people have experienced full game crashes and soft locks, and whilst I haven't experienced that myself, I've suffered from some awful frame rates, temporary game freezes, really bad lighting issues, weird pathfinding stuff in the first cave. There's a lot of jank in this game. If you don't know, there's a memory leak issue in this game, so if you enter a city, when you leave it, it doesn't clear the memory properly, so it essentially just starts building up data and it won't free it up enough, which is why the game will start to slow down after you've been in the city. The solution, of course, is to close the game and restart it, but there's no way that you should have to do that in order to get the game to function properly. Game Freak have patched things before, so if anything's getting a fix, it's the memory leak, but I honestly don't know what they do about the rest of the game. This is probably the one time in the world that I've ever wanted a patch to come out and it just say increased stability, bug fixes. I don't want to armchair dev here because I don't really know that much about making games, and I am sure that the devs have worked their asses off in order to make sure that this game is in a working state, but really, this isn't good enough for the biggest media franchise in the world. And as I said, I've got secondhand embarrassment because It really sucks to see one of my favourite franchises have such a well constructed and well thought out gameplay loop be completely bogged down by performance that doesn't even do well enough on its best moments. I rarely say this, but I would absolutely have loved Game Freak to delay this for a year to get it polished and running at a stable 30 frames per second with less lighting and pop-in issues. There is an entire argument that could be had about Game Freak rushing the game out to meet schedules and how businesses run to the point that there's no incentive to give it more dev time because it prints money regardless, and I will talk about that in a separate video because I think it deserves its own platform outside of this review. But long story short, this game is not performing anywhere near as well as it should, and I don't think it's the Switch's fault, because we've seen what Breath of the Wild is like, we've seen what Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is like. The Switch can handle big open world games, it's just this has not been developed as well as it should. And look, my other main gripe about this is that it's not the prettiest thing in the world. Graphics are not everything of course, but this game feels a bit too mid and bordering on ugly for a fair amount of the time. So a fun anecdote for you, when I was playing through the intro and I was doing that beach scene where you find your ride Pokemon for the first time, my partner walked in and asked why I was playing her all-time favourite game, Jak and Daxter, which is a PS2 game from 2001. That's what the graphics are like. They've tried to implement a more realistic feeling world than previous iterations with better textures for the actual Pokemon, and I've got to say I did like seeing the scales on Seviper and Cyclizar and seeing how shiny and chrome Magnemite is.
Shiny and chrome.
But they have very much not paid the same attention to the environments themselves, looking bland and rough for a lot of the time. I don't want to praise Sword and Shield very much because I didn't think they were great, but I did like the stylized characters of Pokemon. I felt they suited really well. Here, we're not seeing that level of polish, but as I said, graphics are not everything. Ask Sonic Adventure fans. Probably going to get some calls about that one. And even with the piss poor running of Generation 9's launch game, I don't think it detracts very much from the actual gameplay experience, which is just the best it's felt ever. Those same elements that have always been in Pokemon are still here. Battling and catching Pokemon, grinding up the team's levels, beating gyms and challenges, finding hidden items and such. But my experience with Violet has shown this to be streamlined and much more seamless than ever before, and expansive as well. The sheer amount of Pokemon readily available just minding their business and having a sleep is amazing, and there could be a considerable level of grind here, but instead, using Let's Go, you can just mangle them from the overworld, grabbing materials for TMs whilst gaining bits of experience, meaning you can keep exploring while leveling the team up. It's a good adaptation of the system from Pokemon Legends Arceus, where you can catch Pokemon without battling them. And it's not just that exploration and ease mixed in. The way that the gym challenge, along with the evil team and legendary stories have been organised is fantastic as well. You can do them in any order, albeit owing to levels there's definitely an intended order or two. Being able to do them at any pace I want while still exploring, and personally gave me a great sense of freedom and unrestriction that suits this style of world. We also have a fun dynamic soundtrack accompanying us through our journey through Paldea, and I think it suits it really, really well. The area and wild themes blend seamlessly into each other and are very different from previous games, but it really just works with Paldea. It's not a perfect soundtrack by any means, but it's got a lot of good songs, and some of the songs at the end game are absolute bangers. Turn it up. Team Star, I'm looking at you. Something else that's been done really well is the mystery of the crater. The game has given away just enough to pique interest and create mystery, especially if you go and read the books in the library at the school, but it's liberating to not be pushed into doing the story when you don't want. I just want to be able to complete my Pokedex, level everything up and figure out what Pokemon are where, and the game lets me do that. You can even breed wherever you want, and you can use power-ups like in previous games that come in the form of the sandwiches, of course, which honestly I've barely touched, but it's great to know that they are around. Overall, this title just feels inherently Pokemon with its mechanics, but at the same time it's more freeform, and it's exactly what the series needed to strive towards in my opinion. Although maybe less emphasis on sandwiches in the towns and less removal of clear quality of life updates like visual and audio indicators for shinies in the overworld. And that is where this sandwich ends. I love the steps that Game Freak is pushing this game with true open world mechanics, well-made stories, and engaging gameplay loops that make me want to explore for hours on end. But, and I cannot stress this enough, I frankly loathe the performance of this game, and to an extent the graphics as well. It's too shaky, too stuttery, too glitchy, and is not of the quality befitting a series like Pokemon. I'm sure this video and this take is obviously not something you've not heard before on Reddit or anything like that, but I think it's really interesting. Like, I adore this style of game and its open world and being able to go do whatever I want and discovering things for myself, but Frankly, it really smarts seeing the game perform the way that it does. I honestly don't think the performance detracts that much from the experience for the majority of the part, but if you have the game running for a long time, you do start to see some really weird shit. And like, sometimes it's funny, but sometimes it just sucks, you know? I'd be really happy to wait an extra year for the next generation to make sure that we never get a Pokemon game that releases in this state again. And if I were them, that's definitely the decision I would make in order to make sure that they have a quality product. That you could get spin-offs from other developers. You know, we could have a Pokken Tournament 2. That would be amazing. Or maybe a Pokemon Warriors game, or I don't know, something else. Something else. Give me your suggestions in the comments. Normally I say, what do you think of this game? What did you think of this review? But in actuality, I think I know what most of you think. So let's change it up a bit. What is your favourite glitch that you have encountered playing Pokemon Scarlet or Violet? For me, I really enjoyed going to a mass outbreak of a new Pokemon and it spawning outside of the world boundaries. And then you could lock onto the Pokemon, you could just get the camera outside, and then it was just really, really weird. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to capture it on my capture card, but definitely a fun experience. So tell me your favourite glitch, make sure you hit like and subscribe. So thank you so much for watching, and now check this video out for some fun facts you may have missed during your Scarlet or Violet playthrough.